All right, so this week we're going to talk about something that sounds a little dramatic, the cyber kill chain. And yeah, it is dramatic, but it's also one of the most useful mental models in cybersecurity. Because here's the truth: attackers aren't sitting in a dark room just smashing keyboards and hoping something works. That's Hollywood. In reality, they follow a process. It's repeatable, it's predictable, it's a process. And once you see that process, you can start to interrupt it. That's the whole game. So if we get one thing out of the way early, they don't just hack, right? They plan, they prepare, they test, they execute. It's not chaos, it's a workflow. And that's actually really good news for us because if anything follows a process, that process can be understood, right? And if anything can be understood, it can be disrupted. So instead of thinking, how do I stop hackers? Start thinking, where in their process can I catch them? That shift in thinking, that's where people start becoming dangerous in a good way. Most organizations think about security like a shopping list. There's firewalls, antivirus, MFA, check, check, check. But attackers don't care about your checklist. They care about whether they can move from step one to step seven without getting noticed. If you understand the process of an attack, you stop thinking in terms of tools and you start thinking in terms of behavior. And behavior leaves evidence. So this isn't about memorizing stages. It's about learning how attacks actually unfold in the real world. The cyber kill chain is just a way of breaking an attack into stages. That's it. It's nothing magical. It was developed by Lockheed Martin, but the idea is quite simple. Every attack has phases. If you can identify those phases, you can figure out where to stop it. Think of it like a timeline. At the beginning, the attacker is gathering information. At the end, they're doing damage. Everything in between is opportunity, an opportunity for detection, an opportunity for disruption. So here's the seven stages. And don't worry about memorizing these. We're going to walk through each one. Reconnaissance, weaponization, delivery, exploitation, installation, command and control, and then actions on objectives. It sounds like a lot, but it's really just a story, a beginning, a middle, and an end. And once you start seeing attacks as a story, they become a lot easier to follow what's happening. So let's make this real. Imagine someone breaking into a house. They don't just show up and kick the door in. They drive by first, they look for cameras, they figure out when you're not home. That's reconnaissance. They bring tools. That's weaponization. They get inside. That is delivery and exploitation. They hang around, maybe they disable some alarms. That's installation. And eventually they take what they came for. Same exact concept, just a different environment. Cybersecurity is just burglary with better Wi Fi. Reconnaissance is where it all starts. It's the attacker doing their homework. They're looking at your website, your LinkedIn, your employees, your tech stack. They're scanning your systems, poking at the edges, seeing what's exposed. And the scary part, a lot of this is completely passive, completely invisible. You don't even know you're being studied. At this stage, this is where attackers are building the blueprint. And if you don't think people are doing this, I promise you they are. Then an attacker will take what they've learned and they build something. Could be malware, could be a phishing email, could be an exploit. They're crafting something specific to the target. This isn't always mass produced. Sometimes it's custom built for just one organization or even one person. This is where the attack becomes real. Up until now, they just had information. Now they get a tool. And that tool is designed to work against you. Now comes the moment of truth. How does the attacker get their weapon to the target? Usually, it's something simple: an email, a link, a download, a message that looks just real enough. This is where humans get involved. And honestly, this is where a lot of attacks succeed. Not because the technology is amazing, but because it's convincing enough. This stage is less about hacking and more about psychology. Exploitation is where the trap is sprung. Someone clicks on a link, opens the file, runs the program, or maybe a vulnerability gets triggered automatically. This is the moment where access is gained. And often it just takes one mistake, one click, one overlooked patch, one weak spot, and suddenly the attacker is inside. Now that they're in, the attacker wants to stay. Installation is about persistence, dropping malware, creating accounts, setting up ways to come back later. Because attackers don't want a quick visit, they want a long term presence. This is where things get quiet. Less flashy, more subtle, and a lot harder to notice if you're not looking. Now the attacker needs to communicate with what they've compromised. This is command and control, C2. The infected system phones home, if you will. It checks in, it receives instructions, and now the attacker can control things remotely. This is where the attack becomes interactive. It's no longer just a one time event, it's a relationship. It's not a good one. This here is the payoff: actions on objectives. Data theft, ransomware, account takeover, espionage. Whatever the goal was, that's happening here. Everything up to this point was set up. This is execution. And if the attacker gets this far, it usually means multiple earlier opportunities were missed. So when you zoom out, this isn't chaos, it's a sequence, a chain of events where each step depends on the one before it. And that's powerful because if you break the chain at any point, the attack falls. You don't have to stop everything, you just have to stop something. Here's the big takeaway: if you can detect any stage, you can stop the attack. Earlier is better, obviously, but even late detection is better than none. And that's why visibility matters so much. Logs, alerts, monitoring. If you can't see what's happening, you can't stop it. It's as simple as that. Defenders don't need to be perfect, attackers do. They have to succeed at every stage. You only have to catch them once. Maybe it's a suspicious login, maybe it's a weird network connection, maybe it's a user reporting a phishing email. Those small moments, that's where defenders win. And now we stop talking and we start doing. This week, you're going to take a real world style attack and break it down using the kill chain. Not memorize it, not define it, actually use it. Because once you apply this model to something real, it clicks. So here's a scenario: an employee gets what looks like a Microsoft email. They click a link, they log in. Turns out it wasn't Microsoft. Now the attacker has their credentials. They log in, set up inbox rules, start moving around. And this isn't hypothetical. This happens every single day. Your job is to map this attack to the kill chain, step by step. Where did reconnaissance happen? Where was the delivery? Where did exploitation occur? And more importantly, where could this have been stopped? That's where you start thinking like a defender. Once you've mapped it out, I want you to think about what's the hardest thing that might be to detect. Where would you focus your defenses? Where do you think most organizations mess up when it comes to this? Because they do all the time. Next week, we're going to go deeper. The kill chain tells us what happened. Next, we're going to look at how they happen. That's where MITRE ATT&CK comes in. And once you combine the two, you'll start seeing the full picture. So, best of luck with the lab this week and have fun. Reach out if you have any questions.